Good morning, period 4 and period 6, Honors Algebra 1 and Algebra 1. This is for March 23rd, 2020. These are our 9.3b samples. So in this lesson, recall that our goal was to graph a function to find the zeros of the function. So here we go with our one and only sample. F of x is equal to x squared minus 6x minus 7. When we factor it, we find that since negative 7 times 1 is negative 7 and negative 7 plus 1 is negative 6, f of x will be equal to x minus 7 times x plus 1. Setting each of those factors equal to 0, we will arrive at the zeros x equals 7 or x equals negative 1. So we're going to place those zeros in a table of values, and then we'll find our vertex exactly halfway in between those two zeros. Remember, to find the vertex of our parabola, knowing two zeros of the function, we're going to take those two values, add them up, and divide by 2. That will give you the number exactly in between those two x values. In this case, that will be 7 plus negative 1 divided by 2 equals 3. So the average of 7 and negative 1 is 3. Place that in the middle of your table of values and note that x equals 3 is exactly 4 spaces away from 7 as well as 4 spaces away from negative 1, verifying that 3 is exactly in the middle of those two x values that are the zeros of the function. Since we already know that when x is negative 1 and 7, f of x is 0, we place that into our table with no further work. We then figure out the value of our vertex. As you see in the middle of my table of values, I'm working that out. And I arrive at f of x is equal to negative 16. That's when x is 3. I'm going to plot those 3 points. Again, we only need 3 points as we're working this way to define our parabola. And when I have those 3 points on my coordinate plane, I'll see that I have a parabola opening upward, bottoming out at 3, negative 16. My parabola will have a rounded bottom, and it will be in the shape of a V with that rounded bottom. So my parabola opens ever wider. And then I can finally state the whole point of what we're doing here. What are the zeros of the function based on the graph? And we see on the graph that that parabola intersects the x-axis at negative 1 and at 7, so the zeros of the function are negative 1 and 7. Please review these samples, become familiar with them, and then proceed on to today's 9.3b quiz. And I'll see you next in guided practice.